It has been a challenging start to the new liturgical year. Parishes within the Archdiocese of Toronto, in the regions of Peel and Toronto, have been severely restricted in how we are to minister. Like the terrible feeling we had in March during Lent going into Easter, we are in the same boat now, moving from the season of Advent into Christmas, with very little certainty about what will come. While the parish never stops and the work of God is being done, albeit privately, it's really difficult to get into the season because of all the illogical and inconsistent decisions that are being made from government and public health officials. They can't even answer the simple question, why? These difficulties can build up, and we can find ourselves slipping into despair. Over the past weeks, I have found myself more pessimistic about the whole situation, which has been a cause of concern. Aware of this movement in my heart, and knowing the season of Advent is a season of hope, I began to reread Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI's encyclical on hope, Spe Salvi. In hope we are saved, quoting St. Paul in his letter to the Romans. In his introduction, Benedict writes, "Redemption is offered to us in the sense that we have been given hope, trustworthy hope by virtue of which we can face our present. The present, even if it is arduous, can be lived and accepted if it leads towards a goal. If we can be sure of this goal, and if this goal is great enough to justify the effort of the journey." Immediately reading these lines presented me with a reminder, God is ever faithful, and with Christian hope, we can face the present challenges because it sees in the horizon the goal of the Christian way of life, heaven. We know that Christian hope is rooted in the Scriptures. The first reading for today's Mass is taken from the prophet Isaiah, which forms the third part of a poem which articulates the coming judgment of the Lord. There is urgency in the prophet's tone as he calls on the Lord as Father, and with a father's tender heart to not turn away, but to use the calamities as the way to mold the people in his hands, to turn them away from their unfaithfulness. In the fullness of time, our God, who is a Father who keeps his promises, would send his only begotten Son into the world to set right the injustice that is caused by sin, and the wages of sin, death, through dying on the cross and rising from the dead, reconciling us to the Father. God uses the calamity of having his Son die on the cross so that he can shine his face upon us, battered, beaten, covered in blood and spittle, and an open, tender heart pouring out blood and water for us so that we might be saved. It is through an encounter and lived relationship with Jesus Christ and the cosmic event of the cross that the Father is able to mold each generation and turn us away from our unfaithfulness. This is why St. Paul is thanking God in how the early Christians in Corinth responded to an encounter with Jesus Christ. They came to know the true God in the person of Jesus Christ. They responded with faith and answered the call into fellowship with him through the sacraments. Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI explains, "It is in this knowledge and in this encounter with the living God that we receive hope. And this hope allows us Christians to live in this world with all its present challenges and to remain faithful to God who is faithful to his people." Without this faith in God and confronted with the present challenges of each generation, we will find ourselves in despair, a dark world facing a dark future. As sojourners on this earth, we now await for the glorious second coming of Christ to judge the living and the dead. But the glorious second coming of Christ as the just judge will come only after as the compendium of the Catholic Church states, the final cosmic upheaval of this passing world. He will come and shine his face upon us and open his heart to us. But this time, we don't have a choice to accept or reject the salvation he won for us. In order to sojourn through this upheaval in a passing world, we walk with hope. And the one who has hope lives differently. The one who hopes has been granted the gift of new life. This new life that hope gives, given to us by faith in Jesus Christ, is refreshing and gives life a new outlook. To keep our eyes on the horizon, heaven. We can then say firmly with St. Augustine, "You have entered upon a time of trial, but you will come to no harm. God's help will bring you through it safely. You are like a piece of pottery, shaped by instruction, fired by tribulation. When you are put into the oven, therefore, keep your thoughts on the time when you will be taken out again, for God is faithful."